Welcome to the Archive Room, the stories behind the footage. Okay, so welcome to the Archive Room. I'm Dominic Dare, and this is my co-host Sandra Coelho.
Hello.
This is episode 6, can you believe it or not? Today's guest is Massimo Moretti. We're delighted to have him today. He's a leading figure in footage licensing and archive strategy with over 20 years in the footage industry. Since 2010, he's overseen the commercial development of STUDIOCANAL's vast archive in the UK, one of Europe's largest film and TV libraries, featuring amazing titles such as Paddington and Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy, and The Imitation Game. Massimo's career spans Skyworks, Fremantle Media, and the BBC, amongst others, and he brings a rare combination of hands-on expertise and insight to the world of archive. So we're delighted to have Massimo Moretti join us in the Archive Room. Welcome, Massimo.
Hi, everyone.
It's great to have you on board today. So for listeners that aren't familiar, can you just give us a little bit of a breakdown of what STUDIOCANAL is? Is it a studio? Is it a distributor? Is it an archive? Give us the lie of the land when it comes to what STUDIOCANAL is.
Okay, well, STUDIOCANAL is pretty much a bit of everything that you just said. We are part of Canal Plus, French broadcaster and TV producer. And we, as STUDIOCANAL, we look after the financing, distribution and production of films we do globally across our territories, which are France, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, and the Netherlands are our main territories. We distribute and produce over 50 films every year across our territories. Within STUDIOCANAL, there's a huge library of over 6,000 titles in between feature films and TV series. Again, is split across territories. So although we don't have a footprint really in US apart from a production office, we do have a huge catalog of US titles from the 60s to the 90s really. Then we have the British catalog, which goes all the way back to the 20s, and it goes up to basically the 80s through across various incarnations. And then there is the French library, which is made of primarily European titles, French, Italian titles. Again, they go all the way back to the 30s. So it's very diverse.
And so, physically, where are the libraries held? I mean, is it in one place? What's the setup for where this stuff is kept?
Well, no, it's across territories. Right. Really. The easiest for me to talk about is the British Library because I know it better. That it's over, just to put it in perspective, of the 6,000 titles that we have, about 1,000 come from the UK. So those are stored in UK facilities. I mean, most of our original negs are stored by ourselves through a third party. Obviously, we work with the BFI because some of our original negatives, especially from the nitrate era, are now held by the BFI. So we work with them quite regularly. My colleagues in technical have a ongoing relationship with them. And then when it comes to the US titles, most of them are in labs across the LA area. We do have, because our rights are sometimes split with territories, we do have relationship with Paramount and Warner's and MGM. They do hold some of our next over there, and then there are other facilities in Europe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so let's focus in on the British kind of side of things. So a little bit, I think, as I understand it, so as all of these things are always complicated, but over the years you've absorbed libraries, right? Like legacy libraries like Ealing, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So tell us a little bit about that part of the collection, and then Coralco as well. Is that another thing?
Yes, I mean, Coralco was the first library that STUDIOCANAL ever acquired.
Okay.
STUDIOCANAL started producing and financing films in the 90s, and they started with a foothold at Coralco. So some of the late Coralco titles that they produced around 92, Terminator 2, Chaplin, and the likes, they had financing from STUDIOCANAL. Then Coralco, as you know, overstretched themselves, and eventually they went into administration. And I mean, that was bad luck for them, was good luck for us, because the STUDIOCANAL picked up the rights then to the library. So that was the first acquisition that STUDIOCANAL made. And as it happened, the British catalogue that I was talking about before. Yeah, the British collection that came into the Studio Canal fold around 95, 96. I mean, it's got it's got a lot of history in regards to who made it up, and who owned it over the years. The bulk of the titles belong to what used to be the EMI Films library, when EMI was a big conglomerate that went from lamps to records. They also owned the studios at Elstree, and with those they owned the production facilities, and they produced films up to the 80s really. But their history goes back to the 20s. I mean, the first film production company out of Elstree that had any size was British International Pictures, where Hitchcock worked before leaving for Hollywood. So that is the sort of the seed of the library, British International Pictures. And over the years, they became Associated British Pictures, a corporation that produced classics like The Dumbusters.
Come over here. I thought of a new idea.
Mr. Wallace put forward a theory that's too fantastic to explain.
Do you mean that a bomb can bounce along the water like a ping pong ball?
That's no good. It's too short.
You're going to attack the great dams of Western Germany. Stand by, everyone. We're going in. It's got to be done at low level.
It sounds a bit far-fetched. Looks impossible.
If we can surprise them, then we'll play hell with them.
It's still there.
With Arthur J. Rank's company, they were basically the two big studios. They were fully integrated up to the 60s. So when I say fully integrated, they owned production facilities, they owned the distribution organization, they also owned the cinema theaters. So ABC Cinemas, was part of that group. So they were very powerful. And when Sir Michael Balcon decided that Ealing wasn't sustainable anymore as a going studio, they acquired the library. So that's how we are lucky enough to have that wonderful collection with our within Studio Canal. Over the years, I mean, that there's peak and throws, as you know, in the film industry in the UK. So EMI eventually dismissed their film operations. They were sold to Canal Films, that also owned cinemas back in the 80s. And they didn't last very long. There were various other sort of acquisitions over the years, up until 95, 96, when eventually it all became part of Studio Canal, and it's been there ever since.
And so, with a complex, that's a really interesting history. I mean, it's such a storied collection in many ways.
It is.
In terms of, so let's just focus on the content for a bit. Very kind of, very, very lean sort of ideas. But what's the most popular titles that you get asked for? And what kind of, what's the big sellers for you?
Well, there are prestigious titles that you always associate to us. So the Ealing comedies, for example, are always associated to us. And they are, when it comes to restoration and our home entertainment releases, those are the most prestigious restorations that we normally release. But as you know, when it comes to archive licensing, it's not always the most prestigious titles that become the best sellers, so to speak. But over the years, they generated a lot of revenue for the library. But if I have to point out some of the highlights, back in the day when there was a lot of TV commissions about British society and how it's being represented on TV and on screen, because we have such an array of comedians and script writers that had an important role in British society. I would say that films from Harry J. Corbett, the Tony Hancock comedies, anything that sort of anything with Kenneth Williams, they always sort of been very popular for us in terms of licensing, because they always have to show how these people's molded the British entertainment over the years. But on the other hand, I mean, we have the one documentary record of the expedition to Everest in 1953 that was made for the coronation of the late Queen Elizabeth. So that film, Conquest of Everest, which is a straightforward documentary of the expedition going up to the top of the mountain. I mean, that, because it's a unique record, that has always been a highlight within our library in terms of, if you want to talk about climbing expeditions and obviously about Everest, we are in a unique position from that point of view. So it's a real mix.
So I mean, as these things always are. In terms of, so let's talk about kind of finding content. Obviously, you get approached by archive producers, researchers, other studios constantly. How does somebody go about learning what you've got? What's digitized? What's not? What would you like to be digitized? And so forth. So let us know how that pans out.
How can I put it this diplomatically? I mean, we have, I can talk about my experience in the UK, but we also I have colleagues of mine that work in Paris on this, and we also have an agent based in the US. We are blessed with the fact that most of our content, as in the finished feature films that we own, most of it has been digitized in some shape or form. So when it comes to the actual licensing on the material, we are in a much better position than we used to be, say, 5 or 6 years ago, where each time that you had a request, you would have to go to a lab to get the material transferred and all of that. We are in a much better position there. So if someone comes to me and they want to have a look at, I don't know, one of our titles for a potential use of a clip, and then we can easily send screeners as files so they can look at it. And when it comes to the licensing and they need the high-res material, unless they have a specific request for a specific format, we can deliver that seamlessly, as opposed to back in the day where you always had to go the extra step of going through the post-production house. But the trick is that they really have to have an inkling of what they really need or want first. So if they know that they want something that is war-related or had a war, it's a specific genre, they want a noir or a gangster film with a British feeling, they know, because of the library that we have, that they can approach us. And then I do the research offline. There is no online research facility. That is the part that is becoming challenging, because the kind of requests we get are changing. We are going from strictly editorial requests. I need a clip to illustrate the lack of sci-fi fiction films in Britain, so I want a clip from the Man Who Fell to Earth, to, I'm working on a project where we show various femme fatale with a gun in their hand. So we've gone from, okay, I know exactly what you want because you mentioned the title, you mentioned the director, you mentioned the actor, I can find it easily, to actually they don't know the titles, they don't know we have a certain actor. So they come to us with themes, and at the moment we have to do all the research offline. So I wanted to my wish list is very long of stuff that I would like for the archive to work better when it comes to clip licensing, but definitely a better database to allow us to let the clients do their own research. That would be high on my list. And we've known each other for a very long time. So as you know, that there's pockets of the library that have never been digitized for a number of reasons. Because when it comes to clips and stills licensing, everything is potentially precious. There is material there that would be of interest to archive researchers and producers, because has been rarely seen in the last 35 years, but unfortunately it's all on film. So, and what it is back in the day when, as I mentioned before, there was EMI Films, and before that E-Link, they all have their own stock shots libraries to reuse for productions. So if they need an establishing shot of Westminster Bridge or whatever, they would have had it already in the library. So all of all that material, which is not massive in the scheme of things of Studio Canal, but it's a nice sizable collection that is all still on film. So that would be my top priority in my wish list: digitize all of that material.
Just going to ask you about the rushes, Massimo, because you've kept all the rushes for every single film.
Well, I mean, it's part of what I was saying before on the stock shots. I mean, the rushes were kept when feasible to be cut down for stock shots. So sometimes we still have rushes for some of the films, but not very many of them. I would say that is a minority. But what we do have is that from those rushes, they already did the selection. It was a very well organized operation up until the 80s, I would say, because it was vital for them to have background plates, to have establishing shots. I mean, it was a way to basically get the productions to be able to have 35mm quality material without necessarily having to have a second unit to do some of the shooting. So we do have, I would say, reduced versions of the rushes. So it's historically it's an interesting record of how people went about doing films back in the day. And when you look at it and you see the record of, I mean, these stock shots came from the production of the Ladykillers, then obviously you got the extra thrill that some of that material went into a classic. So they got provenance. Yeah, they're not obscure TVs. They were shot sometimes by very famous, or at the time, very famous DOPs and people that went on to much bigger things.
What about the nitrate? Is all that nitrate, because we hear that that's very kind of temperamental, is that all now at the BFI? How does Studio Canal look after its assets?
I can safely say that all of the nitrate materials are now either being disposed of because there were trims or surplus to needs. So either they've been disposed of, or everything that was original camera neg or original production elements are now stored by the BFI. So that is something that you would have thought that was completed ages ago, but the last round of checks for nitrate materials, we did it in, I would say, 2012, 2013, to make absolutely sure there was nothing left. So that is taken care of. Well, we always try to strive to keep the materials in the best possible conditions. So even if they not original camera negatives, if we consider that they are the next best thing that we could use for restoration, we keep them in climate controlled environments, and nothing gets transferred until it is checked by professional film handlers. We only use a selected number of labs to do that kind of work. So yeah, I mean, we used to have our own storage facilities. We now use a third party just because it's more rational. But yeah, that's basically what we do, and we have a technical team that sort of looks after our restorations, and they sort of dip in and out of the holdings on a more regular basis than me, because of what I said before, because most of the stuff is now digitized, so I don't really need to go back to the film.
Yeah. And so let's fast forward to the present day. So you've got, in recent years, hits like Paddington and so forth. Like, how does that work? How does it take to come to be in the archive? How many titles are you adding? Is this a growing archive, or is the archive just from a certain period?
Well, I mean, most of we had one strong benefit when it comes to the historical archive, is that most of the time we own all rights, especially when it comes to the British catalogue. I mean, there will be films where we don't have North America maybe, or films where we don't have certain territories or certain rights, but most of the titles between the 20s to the that comes from the UK, we have all rights. So from a client's point of view, they know that they will have to do less clearance work. So that is been a strong point of the library since its inception. Unfortunately, things have changed. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the business. I mean, the film financing, film production has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. So while back in the day, the distributors would have kept most of the rights, these days it's really on a case-by-case basis. So a film that we fully finance and fully produce, like Paddington, we keep all rights. But for some of the other prestigious titles that we produce, sometimes we will only keep the STUDIOCANAL territories. So we will have France, UK, Germany, and so on. But then if you need to do a worldwide license, you might have to deal with a third party or a studio in the US. To answer your question, is it growing? Yes, the library is growing in numbers of titles that we distribute. But when it comes to clips and stills licensing and sort of derivative licensing, then it's a bit more of a mixed bag. It doesn't grow as much as possibly I would like, because as the library gets older, some of the older titles become less relevant, but we don't have a lot of new content that can sort of match the loss.
And so presumably, like all major studios with such an amazing titles, you re-release. So is there a whole division? Is there gold in them their hills? Are titles being re-released regularly? What's the commercial aspect of that like, these days? Is the cost of restoration then re-release worth it? Is there a market for it?
Well, I mean, yeah, my colleagues in home entertainment will always answer enthusiastically yes to all of those questions. But the reality is that there is still a market. And it's a market that is made of very strongly affiliated to the brand's fans. So they are fans that have a fondness for film and a fondness for certain titles, and also like to enjoy these titles in the best possible format. So we still do re-releases. I mean, they are the main thrust of the international catalog team when it comes to which title we restore, how we restore them. Do we do a 4K, or are we just happy to do a Blu-ray? So there is a question of what is worth revisiting, because although we've gone from DVD to Blu-ray to 4K, the numbers are not the same. As in, when people move from their libraries from VHS to DVD, they have 100 films on VHS, I want 100 DVDs. That happened partly in Blu-ray, because as you remember, Blu-ray had HD DVD as a competitor, so people weren't quite sure what to use. So the conversion wasn't quite the same. And then we had this tsunami, if you remember, back in 2010, that sort of killed the HD format for good. After that, there was only Blu-ray, but by that time we were in the throes of the 2008 economic crisis. People sort of started to become very much more selective about what they get in their film library. So that has had an effect. But now with 4K and 4K players being more readily available, we noticed that it's not just the new action releases like Mission Impossible that really require 4K release. I mean, people will be happy to have Kind and Coroners, 1949 black and white film in 4K. So it's an interesting market. It's still strong because the fans are very passionate, but obviously the numbers need to be justified a lot more.
It's very challenging for everybody at the moment, and we sort of see AI kind of encroaching and hearing lots about it. Before we shoot into the lightning round, what's your thoughts for the next 10 years? Where do you see the collection, or indeed the industry, changing? What's your outlook for archives, and in particular the studio archive?
One of the aiming in my life was not to end up like one of my previous managers that used to love to say, "I'm the oldest thing in the archive." He used to love to have clients coming in, and it was one of his catchphrases. And I always thought, I don't want to end up there. So next 10 years is a long time. For the industry, I think that AI is going to be a blessing and a challenge at the same time. A blessing because I think it will open up opportunities to license in speed at scale that potentially we've never seen before. On the other hand, if it's not properly regulated, and if you don't have a sense of exactly where the guardrails are, you will be flooded with poor quality AI content that would be very difficult to spot compared to original content or relevant content. So it will make the life of people that license and people that are licensing, in my opinion, a lot more challenging. And I'm not even going anywhere near the legal issue about how you train AI to produce the results you get. From the point of view of the archive within STUDIOCANAL and within the archive, the content licensing that I do, AI could be transformative because it could allow me and my colleagues to go from, well, I kind of know that I have an actress in a red dress going through a main road in daylight. I'm pretty sure I've seen it. It will take me 3 days to find it. Hopefully, we will get to a point where we will be able to offer to our clients the chance to basically find that material a lot quicker. We have the material digitized. We now have to work really very hard on our data. If we do that, I think we are in a good position to sustain whatever the industry trends will be. If we don't do that, it's going to be a lot more of a challenge because we are still, in a way, licensing the way we were licensing pre-pandemic.
And is STUDIOCANAL doing anything with AI at the moment? Obviously, with the territories being France and the UK, France have got very different copyright laws than the UK.
Yeah, I mean, everything that is related to AI is done at group level. And when I say group level, it means that is something that Canal Plus as an entity is looking at and investigating, and then it percolates down to the various units, including STUDIOCANAL. Obviously, Canal Plus is in France the equivalent to what Sky is in the UK. So you have to look at that kind of scale. And now we have that kind of scale in Africa as well, because we acquired a company called MultiChoice. They're based in South Africa, but basically they offer satellite coverage and TV production to the whole of the English-speaking African continent. So obviously the scale is gone up a notch for the group. So AI is very important, but it has to serve the purposes of the group. So the group first, and then it percolates down. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be quick, but we have limited control at the moment and very limited input in what we can ask to AI to do for us at the moment.
So let's move on to the Sandra and the archive.
Yes. Okay. So it's time for you to just answer the quick questions. Quick,
Okay.
one-word answers. So
I've never done one word in my life.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah,
Right.
go on.
So, most underrated title in the catalogue.
It's probably Conquest of Everest because hardly anyone knows about it, even within STUDIOCANAL.
Most requested film or clip you deal with.
In the last 5 years, it has to be Paddington. Paddington 2.
Oh, what's this?
Ah, that must be the popping book. Very interesting.
Really?
You see, Madame Koslova's great-grandmother, who started the fair, was also a brilliant artist. And every time they visited a new city, she made a popping book to remember it by.
Oh.
And this is London.
Oh, Mr. Gruber, it's wonderful. Aunt Lucy always dreamed of coming to London and never had the chance. But if she saw this, it would be like she were finally here. Aunt Lucy! Aunt Lucy!
Paddington!
Come with me, Aunt Lucy.
Oh, yes, please. I want to see everything.
Well, what do you think?
It's wonderful.
All aboard! 1.5 bears, please. Mind your step, madam.
What a polite young man. What a polite young pigeon. Oh, Paddington, you've made an old bear so very happy.
This is perfect.
What's the quickest clip clearance you've ever handled?
As in turnaround,
Yeah.
we've done clips in 24 hours.
Okay, and what's the longest one?
Longest one, I think must have been pushing on to 9 months, to be honest with you.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing you wish every client understood about clip licensing. You can't swear.
I just said that I did the clip license in 24 hours, but I would like them to understand that it takes time. Takes time.
Best decade for the library, 60s or the 90s?
60s. For our library, yeah.
If you could greenlight a restoration project tomorrow, which title gets it?
That's a loaded question. I would like to do the Stockshort library.
That's what we like to hear. One clip or scene you think everyone should rediscover?
And I mean, anything within the Ealing comedies, any little nuance, every little, look that everything is pitch perfect. I mean, to me, they always are.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't say a title, but yeah, definitely Ealing.
And then what's the biggest misconception about a major studio archive?
We own everything. That's basically the biggest misconception that I have clients that to show, that they think that because it's in the library, then we must own every little element in it. And to be honest with you, sometimes even in-house, we have that misconception.
And finally, if the archive at Studio Canal could talk to you, what would it say?
Oh, just retire, Massimo. You're part of the furniture on board. I hope that the archive would say that for someone that wasn't born in England and everything else, that I did justice to its legacy. That's I would like that to say.
That's a wonderful note to end this on. Massimo, we are hugely grateful for your time and joining us and your expertise. I think everybody will know a little bit more about the archive now, and hopefully a few more people will be able to find it. And so thank you very much for joining us. And
it's been a pleasure as usual.
Good. And we'll look forward to having you again in the next few months.
Brilliant.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Bye.
You've been listening to The Archive Room, the stories behind the footage.